started. My name is Christine. I'm from the Office of International Studies. We're glad you're here. And welcome to a new season of Primetime at the BU Library. Primetime is a collaborative project between the Friends of the BU Library, faculty development, and many other offices on campus, which celebrate learning beyond the classroom through the experiences and accomplishments of all faculty, students, and staff. If you're interested in hearing past Primetime presentations, you can find them at the BU Digital Library, which is found on the library's homepage. On Thursday, November 20th, Julia Moen and the student Sarah Rowan from the Social Work Department will present a Ready for Prime Time, which discusses our responsibility in preparing and educating students about personal safety in the community. In their presentation, it is time to evaluate our student safety in the field, practicums, internships, service learning, and TCO. So today we welcome Michelle Munsterman and Sarah Massie as they present a brief overview of their study abroad experience and presentation entitled Making Our Way Through Italy. Welcome them.
As Christina said, oh wow, this is loud. Okay. My name is Sarah Massie. I'm a senior. I'm an organizational communications major here at TEFL.
My name is Michelle Munsterman. I'm a business major in finance and HR management. So just to give you a little bit of background, we went with AIFS, which is an affiliated program. There's also Bethel programs, but we chose to go through the program. And so there's students from across the country from different schools, private and public, which was really neat to give us some cool perspective. We went to Rome, Italy, and it was last fall.
And then kind of a brief overview of the program. We spent 3 days in London, just kind of working off some jet lag. Sight saw a little bit. In Florence, we had a 2-week intensive study of the Italian language. So we sat for 4 hours every day in a very, very hot room and studied Italian, and still don't really know much right now. And then after those 2 weeks, we took a bus to Rome, where we moved in for the rest of our time. And these are just kind of a couple pictures from Florence. The top left is of Florence to the river. You can see right there is just kind of the Tuscany region. That's actually a picture, a shot from the Chianti Castle that we explored. This is a Duomo, which actually in Italian means church, which I didn't actually know that until about halfway through, because everything was called a Duomo, and I was like, why do they have the same name? Oh, because it's a church in Italian. Okay. Here's another shot of the river, and then the far right over there is from the highest point of Florence.
So after the 2 weeks, we went to Rome. We studied at Richmond University, which is based in London, but there's a study center in Rome, and it's in the center of the city. It's fairly small, only a few classrooms, but the location was really neat. We lived in an apartment with 7 girls total in the Monte area, so just a 5-minute walk from the Coliseum. And then we took a few courses. I took about 13 credits. I took all electives, but it was kind of fun just to take a break from your typical courses that you take here. And then something neat about AIFS in Rome was they gave you food vouchers, and so you could use them throughout the city at restaurants or grocery stores.
Here are just some shots from Rome. Right here, here's the Pope. I'm kind of impressed that I actually got that shot, because we had a papal audience, which basically we just kind of drive through the Vatican area and you wave. So both of us put up our camera and we just kind of blindly shot and hope that we got a picture of him. There it is. The shot here is from the Coliseum. Here's a Roman Forum. So if you can imagine our walk, we walked by this every day. So you're just kind of on your way to school, bouncing with your backpacks and music, and then boom, some ancient ruins. That's the walk in Rome. And then there's a Trevi fountain, which we found that it was nearly impossible to actually get a shot of this, because Rome itself is very compact, so nothing is in this kind of wide open space where, wow, this is the huge Trevi fountain. You're just kind of turning, there's a restaurant, boom, there's a Trevi fountain. And then there's another shot of the painting.
So just a typical day in the life. Started with French press coffee. Took some Nutella. Walked to school. It took us about 30 minutes, depending how fast we walked. And One thing that we did a lot was we went across the street to Scusi, which is our favorite little restaurant. Yeah, and then after school, just kind of went grocery shopping, which actually was extremely time consuming just because you have to walk so far and you have to carry it so far. And then we also volunteered every week, and then just dinner, either made it at home or just went out to a restaurant.
We just tried to give you a brief overview of what a day in the life looked like. Honestly, days definitely varied, and that was one of the fun things about being abroad, is that you didn't kind of have a set regimen of what you did. There wasn't really much of a routine, so you kind of just explored and figured out what you were going to do.
Something neat about AIFS is that they gave us a lot of opportunities for just activities throughout the week, and so if we had the opportunity to volunteer, as you mentioned, I was a tutor in just a third grade classroom at an elementary school, and just kind of helped them with their English, which was really poor. And then went to a few soccer games. They offered day trips on the weekends, and some of them were field trips for courses, and we had the opportunity to hop in if we wanted. And then cooking class at night, and then there's also inclusive weekend excursions to Venice, Capri, and Naples.
I also volunteered as well. I volunteered by teaching 2 young 7th graders English, and then actually tutoring an older gentleman in English as well. And I did this with another friend from our program. So the 2 young boys, they didn't know English very well. They were learning it in school, so their mom just wanted us to kind of talk with them and go through some basic lessons, basic grammar. But the older gentleman we tutored, he was fluent in English, and I thought this was pretty cool because he learned English by watching CNN. And so some interesting experiences from that. He knew probably more about American happenings than I did, because at that point the government had shut down when we were gone. I didn't know, but he did. So in English and Italian, he was kind of talking me through that. It was just a really cool way to immerse myself in the Italian culture. It was just another way to kind of get to know the Italian people. And also got to go to an opera, which I was really glad to say that I actually went to a legitimate opera, not gonna lie. I fell asleep. Didn't understand it, but it was a really cool experience.
So as I mentioned, we go on day trips. Went to Orvieto, Siena, Ruggiano, Scusi, Trevi, Perugia, and Pisa. Some of them were for field trips for classes, but then also just, like Pisa was just while we were in course. We could all hop on a bus for a day and just go for a few hours. That's all you needed. And then Perugia, we went for the chocolate festival. That wasn't offered by AFS. We just hopped on a train and went.
Here are a couple of pictures just from our day trips. The big one right there is from Siena, and that was while we were in Florence. And that's about an hour, I want to say, outside of Florence. And so this square actually is where, or the city of Siena, I guess, is kind of coupled into different groups. And so every summer, each group from the city, they race horses around this square. So it's beautiful. You kind of go in, and it's your picturesque Italian view. So that when you Google Italy, you probably come up with either a picture of Florence or a picture of Siena, and that's what we found. This picture right here is from the top of a castle in Ruggiano, which is about an hour outside of the Roman city center. Just once again, beautiful landscapes, picturesque view of Italy. The picture right there is a picture of Scusi. That was a day trip that we took. We got to explore the churches around there, and then also to see the burial site of St. Francis of Assisi.
And the top left is of Orvieto. I went on a field trip for art, and she just gave us a few hours to just kind of wander the city. And then the bottom is Perugia, the chocolate festival.
So the culture of Italy, I think, as Americans, we have this very distinct kind of view of what Italian culture is like. They eat a lot of pasta, they drink a lot of wine, and they talk really loud. All of those things are very true, but there's some different things about Italy that we found. Italy as a unified country actually wasn't founded until 1861. So if you know anything about just the way the peninsula is set up, there's different regions, and so if you ask an Italian, they wouldn't identify themselves as, I'm Italian. If they're from Rome, they identify themselves as Roman. If they're from Venice, they're Venetian. So their cultural identity is found in what region they're from, so we found that was pretty cool. And going into that, the language, one story in particular, when we were in Venice, We had a very interesting tour guide, and she was Venetian, but our program director was Roman, and so as we were kind of following her along through the churches, he kind of told us, he was just like, it's really hard to understand her, and I was like, we're both speaking Italian, I don't understand. But the different dialects within the country are very distinct, so it was hard for him as a Roman to understand her as a Venetian, which is pretty cool. SPQR, you'll probably find this wherever you go within the city of Rome. It's the ground, it's the churches. The English translation basically means that the Senate and the people are one. And so that's just kind of an encompassing view of what the government is like, or what the government was supposed to be like when established. Yeah, so.
So much walking. I mean, it sounds like so cliche, or you should know that, but I didn't bring good walking shoes, and I really should have. Just walked miles. I don't even know how many we walked each day. Transportation also was extremely unreliable and inefficient, which could also play into how much walking we did. And protests. The day we moved in, there was a protest.
We couldn't get into our apartment for a couple hours, a couple minutes, because there was a protest. Yeah. There's another cool thing about the culture of Italy, and then even some other countries in Europe, is a slow food movement. Italy protested McDonald's, which is kind of our American thing, for a long time. They didn't want the American culture bringing in this whole eat food fast, because Italians really value the art of fellowshipping and having community over food. So the slow food movement is kind of the answer to the fast food call. So in McDonald's now, even it's not quick. You go in and you still kind of have to wait a couple minutes for your burger. But they also have a McCafe, which actually started in Italy. So you can get coffee, you can get your cappuccino, and you can sit at the bar and just kind of nurse your espresso or something like that. So it's kind of their answer to how much America, and even in some instances the rest of the world, has kind of adapted being fast and eating fast.
This is a common question to ask everywhere we went.
Is there Wi-Fi? This picture can't be staged, and I remember I took it and I was in shock. I was like, my goodness, this is so sad. I think this was on a weekend excursion when we were in Naples. We had probably just come from a long tour, as usual. Really fun tour, but long tour. And so the best place to get Wi-Fi was generally in the hotel lobby. And everyone, as soon as we got in, you kind of pulled out your phone and just, oh my goodness, they have Wi-Fi, the bars. And so we kind of looked and checking every social media we could, checking messages, but I remember looking up and seeing everyone just standing addicted to their phones. So this is pretty much what it looks like.
Very American. So we couldn't not talk about coffee. Basically everywhere we went, we got coffee, cappuccino, cafe, latte. This middle picture is when we were in Capri, of all the cappuccinos. We probably got cappuccino maybe 4 times that day, just because it was downpouring, and that's really your only safe bet was to go into a coffee shop. And so we spent way too much money on coffee that day, but
and then just kind of going back in, this just really encompasses the Italian culture. Like, there's no such thing as a Starbucks takeaway cup, or if there is, it's few and far between. So going in and drinking coffee was something that we found actually helped us adapt.
we also could not talk about food either. Gelato, it is a lot better than ice cream, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but it is. And pizza, pasta, Chinese takeaway was basically our diet.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's surprisingly a lot of Chinese food. I did not know there's Chinese or Italians, but I think it's the second largest population besides native Italians. And so we did Chinese takeaway right underneath our apartment, and so we got to know them. Didn't even need a menu.
And as soon as we walked in, takeaway. Yep, that's right. And so I guess once again with Italy and food, this is something that we found to help us adapt to the culture. So being part of our diet.
So a little bit about the AFS excursions. These are all inclusive, which is really nice. They provided transportation and then also some meals and then hotel. So we went to London, England right away, just for 3 days to recover from jet lag. And then while we were in Florence, we went to Venice for a weekend. So they had tours for us, and then also just some free time to do whatever we wanted. Then we also went to Naples and Capri and visited Pompeii, and then just had a day in Capri, which was really rainy, as we said.
Here's some pictures from our day in weekend excursion. The big one right there is of Venice. It's that pretty. It's really hard to describe. Venice, I guess itself, you think of magic, and it's eerie, to be honest with you. Kind of walking through the streets, and there are no cars because there's water. But this was just kind of a picture of what really everywhere you look, they look like this, and I thought that was pretty cool. Right through the bottom is of another square that's in Venice as we walked along. This is of the Basilica, which is in one of the most San Marco Square. That's probably the biggest tourist attraction in Venice. There's some artwork from that, and our artwork and architecture is absolutely phenomenal.
And the ones on the left are in Capri. It was really rainy, and we just kind of walked around. I mean, we really didn't even do anything the whole day, but it was still probably one of my favorite days. We just explored the little towns.
We had some free travel. We didn't actually have classes on Fridays, so that was awesome. So generally on Thursdays, we would either not go to class and go somewhere. We ended up going to Dublin, London, Edinburgh, Paris, and Krakow, and I ended up actually going to Stockholm as well. And these are just some pictures from our trips that we were able to take. It was one of, I guess study abroad in general is one of those only times in your life that you kind of just throw your cares to the wind and book a flight. So if it was a Wednesday night and we felt like doing something on a weekend, go to Ryanair and choose where you want to go.
So we did actually do some studying there, believe it or not. One of my favorite courses was history, food, and table manners, which sounds really kind of funny. But basically it was a history course of the Roman cuisine from the start, like the past 2,000 years. So we went to the Pistachio Market within Rome, which really illustrates the Roman cuisine from all the centuries. Instead of going to the grocery store, like a lot of Romans, they still go and get the fresh food from the market. We also went to the American Academy, which I'll let you.
Okay. The best way to describe the American Academy is basically a place for artists, scholars to come. You can write your dissertation, you can learn how to cook, or you can just really experience the Italian culture. And there's a garden surrounding it, so all the food is fresh, they grow it there. And we have the opportunity to kind of just sit down at this really long table and have a great 4-course Italian meal with people from all over the world. And I don't think anyone from our program was aware of who we'd be sitting with, but we actually ended up sitting next to professors from Yale, and Harvard, and Oxford, and just kind of for a second being taken aback, like, wait, what are you doing here? I'm just a student. Definitely not as smart as you guys, but this is just kind of an example of some of the day trips that we did. Another class that I took was the history of Italian Mafia, and I don't really have any pictures to show for that. I love talking about this class because it was one of the ways that I got to kind of experience in a different way what Italian culture was. So when we think of Italian culture, once again, kind of think of The Godfather, New York Italians, Chicago Italians, but the history of the Mafia was so interesting to learn, to kind of, once again, see into the Italian lifestyle. And so a little bit about that, they identify themselves as La Cosa Nostra, which actually means this thing of ours. And so the Mafia is a family. So we learned about the leaders. We learned about the court cases that went on for months, arguing about who killed who or who's actually in the government. And while we were there, the prime minister was actually impeached because it turned out he was part of the Mafia. So anyway, if that kind of gives you a clue into what I learned about, we actually got to also go into a maximum security prison. Incredible experience, definitely not like our American prison systems, but learned a lot how they do things over there. So.
Another course that I took was High Renaissance Art, which I actually really enjoyed. Especially as a business major, I kind of got my art history fix in this one semester. We were rarely in the classroom, maybe 4 times the whole semester. It was really just site visits like throughout Rome, and then we also took a field trip to Orvieto, which was my favorite little Italian town, and actually my favorite church was there as well. So we just studied Michelangelo, Raphael, Leonardo da Vinci, just from the 18 and 1900s. So.
Another course that we both took together was photography for the media. One thing we learned from this was photography forced is not fun. When your professor tells you to go out and sightsee or people watch, this is kind of what you come up with when you're supposed to take close-ups of people that don't want their picture taken. So this is from a day that we were sitting outside the Coliseum, and actually when you walk to the Coliseum from a certain angle you can go down into the steps. So we were both sitting on some steps and trying to zoom in as best we could, and a gladiator coffee stuck out of some, so he was happy with that. And this, the one, I guess it's maybe Rose with the sunglasses, or the sunglasses, she was about to give a tour, so those are two of the pictures that I took.
I just got someone eating ice cream and this cute little man. So I had to throw that in there. So all the assignments were very fun. We got to pick a final project. I chose Piazzas, which is just like a city square. So these are just some pictures that I took. The top left is Campo di Fiori, which is really near our school. And then the bottom left is Piazza Narbona, which is also just right around the corner. So our school is really like in the center of Rome, which is really nice. Piazza Narbona is probably one of my favorite places in Rome. Both Romans and tourists are there, and there's a lot of artwork being sold and just really beautiful architecture, which I don't really have pictures of. And then this bottom one is in the Santa Maria Maggiore Square, which is near our apartment.
And for my final project, I decided to do the people of Rome, which seems pretty broad, but I actually wanted to do the people that I saw on my walk to school, because I think one of the things I was trying to strive for while I was there was trying to find some sort of normal. So I figured taking pictures of the people I saw every day was a good place to start. So this girl right here, actually, I didn't see her every day, but I found funny. She's actually looking at the Coliseum, but she looks bored out of her mind. And so it's kind of hard to think that she's looking at this crazy piece of architecture. It doesn't look like she's having too much fun. This top guy, he served us coffee about every day. I went into his coffee shop and just €1 for un cappuccino, por favore. The nicest, sweetest man you'll ever meet. This guy right here, he was our superintendent. Every day, whether we were coming or going, ciao. Honestly didn't know if he was saying hi or bye, since ciao was both. This man here was part of the Jewish, he was in the Jewish ghetto, and so I snapped a shot of him. He was playing the accordion, as you can tell, but I just thought that was so cool. He was being a typical Italian man, just sitting, playing accordion, playing some Italian music. And this guy right here, he was a waiter outside the Pantheon. Saw him quite frequently, and always had a smile on his face, so I'm going to turn it to him.
So just some lessons learned. Put away your phone, despite the picture you saw. And really just the overarching lesson I learned was just to take life slow and just embrace the present and even just enjoy people's company. Some of my favorite times was just like going out to dinner with a roommate, or even the cooking classes. It wasn't just like a half hour. You set aside like 3-4 hours to actually like sit down and eat. And not only just enjoy the food, but enjoy the person sitting across from you.
Yeah, and kind of going off that, our cooking classes, it kind of sounds a little bit sketchy because there's 2 men who were basically friends of a professor that offered cooking classes for us. And so they invited us over to our apartment. And had we been in America, I'd been like, I'm absolutely not doing that. But it ended up being one of the best experiences because they were 2 really great friends. They taught us one of the lessons we actually learned how to make spaghetti. And it didn't seem that hard, but learning for 4 hours what it meant to take some time into putting into cooking, or just sitting there and laughing at people as you're making cheese, or you're putting Parmesan on your pasta, really, I think, helped me in particular just learn what it means to slow down. And then also be adaptable. There's so many things about studying abroad that force you to be flexible. You can't have a set thing in your mind and think it's actually going to go according to plan. I don't know how many flights I almost missed, how many trains I was supposed to take that didn't actually go where they said it would go, and then trying to map out how much time it would take me to get from A to B when it took me 4 hours, or just getting lost. You just have to really go with the flow and just breathe and learn to be where you are. So, Jesus, he was there. He was in our hearts. But I think a lot of things we learned on the spiritual aspect of this, especially for me, was the relationship with the quote-unquote non-believer. I think especially now, even in the Christian community here, we have this mission of people who aren't Christ followers, and we're just like, I'm going to go and I'm going to make you a Christian, and that's my goal for you. But I think what I tried to do so much was make sure that people knew that I was there to be their friend. And I think one of the challenges as well was, is there a difference between me stating that I'm a Christ follower and the person who isn't? And that, for me, actually helped me ground my faith. So what does that mean to be a Christ follower in this setting? How are they going to look at me? So for the majority of the semester, I really wasn't sure what they thought, because we became really close with them, but I was just like, people actually know that I'm a Christian. And sometimes we would talk about Jesus outside the Coliseum. One of our roommates, we had one of probably the most deep theological talks I've ever had in my life. And it was just, she didn't believe it, I did, and that was that. But on our last night, I think one of my favorite stories is going through our last goodbye with all the people in our program, and one of our friends had me really tight and said, you completely changed my perspective of Christians. And I was like, how did we do that? And he was like, you lived your life instead of preaching at us. So I think that was something that really helped me kind of even more identify with who I am in Christ and what that means to me. So
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult balance of like accepting them or just making sure that they don't feel judged, but then also, like, okay, well, I want to make sure my lifestyle still is different than theirs. Just making sure you're still set apart, but not disconnected from them. So kind of going off of that too, just tearing down the wall between sacred versus secular, and not inviting God to the four walls of church, but really just working in all situations. And like Sarah said, we just would have conversations. I mean, I had the same experience just with people I didn't think I would be talking with about in unexpected places and times, but God really did work through, so many different experiences that we didn't even know. And something else was just like his constant presence. It sounds very like, okay, well, yeah, he's everywhere, but when you get out of like your comfort zone and from your family and your friends and just where you grew up, I really just experienced his presence in my life, and just really finding like your true identity in him, and not like friends and family and school that you subconsciously do kind of identify yourself with while you're here in America. So
this is just an overview, or just a picture of our entire program. So there's about 34 of us in the program. Actually, front and center, Brittany, she's been in pictures of she's there too. So yeah, this is the people that we lived with. These are the people that we love. We did life with for 4 months. Thank you so much. If you have questions, feel free to talk with us or ask right now.
Yeah, question. Favorite kind of gelato, and please describe your favorite meal that you've had.
Well, pistachio is my favorite gelato, for sure. Favorite meal, I went to.
Okay, I think my favorite meal was, well, probably our first meal in Florence, just because we had no context. Like, I knew Italians had more courses than we did for a meal. But when we sat down at our hotel dining area, they brought out our salad, and I was just like, okay, nice little salad. And then they brought out this lasagna, and I was so thrown off by how good it was. You wouldn't think that I would be, but it was so good. And then after that, I was just like, wow, that was a great meal, ready to get up and leave. And then, nope, there's chicken and potatoes. And I was so confused because I was like, I just ate a meal. And the lasagna square was a chunk. So that was probably my favorite meal. That was just, it helped me learn what it was like. So.
And then dessert.
And yeah, and then of course dessert. Pistachio gelato was my favorite too, so.
I think my favorite meal is probably, like we did a cooking class with the 2 guys in their apartment, and yeah, it sounds sketchy, but they like had gotten fresh dough from the market that morning, and so we just made like our own personal little like calzones and pizzas, and then we also made like fresh, like handmade like chocolate mousse. So that's probably my favorite.
Tell us how the pizza is different from the U.S.
Oh, well, their pizza's a lot thinner. I guess, yeah, our pizza is bigger. I come from Chicago, so I'm used to the deep dish. And I'm also used to only eating like a couple slices and being done. Funny thing about Italy, they give you a whole pizza. And so it's not something that you share. And then once you're about halfway, yeah, I guess you could. Once you're about halfway through, you probably think to yourself, just, oh, I should probably stop. And then, 20 minutes later, it's all gone. It's just, all the flavors are so much more rich because they're fresh. Nothing is preserved, nothing has preservatives in it, so the cheese is cheese, I guess, in its true and rich definition. And the sauce just, you can just taste all the spices, and it's amazing.
And like our favorite pizza from the little shop across our school was like a pesto pizza, so it wasn't even like your traditional like marinara and like mozzarella cheese. It was pesto and like Roma tomatoes and I don't even know.
Lots of goodness.
So you're back now for quite some time. How are you different? Are you? Was it worth going?
Yeah, it was worth going for sure. Just like personal, like how we're different.
Yeah.
I think just like through even just like our spiritual kind of takeaways from what we learned. I feel like that's been more ingrained in me. And like for me, when I was over there, like we easily could have just like lived a completely different lifestyle, and like no one would have known. Like my family would have known, like my friends at home would have known. Like it was just between like me and God, where like I was able to like actively like choose my faith every day, and so it's just like so much more real for me now than it was prior to going. So I guess that's probably how I'm different.
Yeah, I think for me, going off of that as well was still the whole like choosing God choosing Christ every day, but also too like what I touched on briefly was even the concept of being so ingrained in a Christian community and thinking that our sole mission for non-believers is to make sure that they know Jesus, which it is, because we really want them to be saved and go to heaven with us when we die. But I think what I learned so much is the value of a relationship, and it's so great to be able to say that I have friends that come from different walks of life, come from different backgrounds, some people who completely reject God, and we can still bond over our love of a TV show. And it doesn't matter that she doesn't really love Jesus right now, but I do, and she knows that. So I think it just really, even coming back, it just really helped me focus more on my relationships with people and what does that actually mean for me as a Christ follower. So.
Do you have any new insights on American culture from your experiences?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah. It's very fast-paced. It's kind of obvious, but even like when we got back in December and like over Christmas break, like I don't know if it was the Christmas day or the next day, but like my sister was like on her computer like working. I was just like, don't do that, because it's so American, and like in Italy it wouldn't be like that because I don't know, they just take life slow and they just really embrace the present and enjoy each other's company, whereas in America I feel like we don't really do that very much, and we're always on our phones, and I'm guilty of it too. Unfortunately, it's kind of like come back after these few months.
I think really too, this kind of sounds cliche, but we don't really take the time to enjoy the beauty that's around us. But Romans and Italians actually do, because when you're walking along the streets, you're seeing things from 2,000 years ago. You're seeing some of the oldest buildings in the world, and even just walking along the street, they walk so much slower than we do. I had a fast walk, so I'm like, let's get from A to B and be done. But I stopped and I looked up, and I saw the Colosseum to my left, and then I would walk by the Roman Forum and see that these pieces of architecture have been here for so long. But even people who have been there and are native Italians, you can tell that they enjoy what they see, they enjoy their home. And so they take in where they are and appreciate that. So I think that's something that, as Americans, we don't do very well. Appreciate what we see around us. So.
We just finished orientation for students when you're abroad in the spring, and we talked about packing. So I'm wondering, what is something you are so glad that you had with you, and what is something you took that you just didn't take it off?
First, I'm glad I brought a French press. I think my roommates were glad as well, because there was not a coffee maker in our apartment. Also, a raincoat.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad I bought a raincoat, and I'm glad I invested in rain boots. Like, just shoes in general. I'm very glad I brought a couple pair of Birkenstocks with me, and I went through 2 pair because you walk so much, and I didn't think I would. But shoes are essential because they get you where you need to go. So I think that was the thing I was most grateful for packing. The thing I think I came back with more than I had yet, less clothes than I came with, just because, I don't know, we just started kind of throwing stuff out by the end. You don't need as many clothes as you think